Let him have that scrap of land. Vivian Carter sneered, her voice slicing through the courtroom as the judge's gavel fell. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned in. Ethan Ward stood frozen, his empire gone, his marriage dissolved, his dignity stripped in front of the world. All he had left was a run-down house at the edge of nowhere, a joke on his name. Vivian smirked, convinced she had buried him for good. But as Ethan turned the single key in his hand, something flickered behind his calm eyes. Something she couldn't see, because that scrap of land was about to expose the biggest secret she never knew existed. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. Vivian Carter laughed in court. Not loud, just the kind of laugh that slips through teeth like a secret. Ethan Ward stood there, breathing slow. Hand on his tie, thumb running the seam to keep it from shaking. The judge read the order, and the room hummed with camera clicks. Company to the petitioner. Penthouse to the petitioner. Accounts to the petitioner. Vehicles and art transferred. The respondent is left with one property described as a minor dwelling on Brookville's edge. A journalist whispered, "Wow," under breath. Another lifted her phone. Someone in the back muttered that he should have seen this coming. Vivian angled her chin at Ethan like a cover shot and said to her lawyer, "Let him rot in that scrap of land." The lawyer smirked, a bailiff coughed, the gavel fell and felt final. Ethan nodded once. He adjusted his cuff, blinked twice to steady the sting, and stepped out beneath the courthouse lights. Wind tugged his suit. Photographers crowded near the steps, asking if he had anything to say. He said nothing. Silence kept close like a coat. On the sidewalk, two gossiped. "She took his treasury team on day one, right? He cut his own safety net. No prenup," another voice. "He built a rocket without a parachute." He kept moving. The city smelled like hot breaks and coffee. A bus hissed. In the car, he loosened his tie, stared at his hands, then at the single key from the clerk. One key for one tired house. The drive to Brookville crawled. Dusk bruised purple. Crickets started. The house appeared low and weather-stained, porch slanted and mailbox leaning like it had opinions. He cut the engine and listened to the tick of cooling metal. Breath in, breath out. Inside, dust lifted. The switch worked, but the light flickered. A cedar smell clung to the walls. Floorboards answered under his shoes. He opened the kitchen window and cold air slid in. For a minute, he let the quiet sit. Then he looked down at the key again and smiled to himself. He set his phone face down, rolled his sleeves, and walked the rooms. Bedroom, office, maybe crawl space hatch. He tested it. Hinges groaned. A neighborhood dog barked. The end went still. Vivian posted from the penthouse that night. New glass, new view, new life. Her caption read, "Starting fresh." In comments, someone asked about Ethan. She replied with a single broken house emoji. Under the kitchen tile, a hairline seam caught his eye. He filed the detail away. Across town, the small house breathed, and Ethan listened. Morning pushed pale light through the blinds. Ethan woke to the whistle of a radiator and the taste of old paint. He sat up, rubbed grit from his eyes, and listened. The house creaked like a ship. Coffee bubbled. The burner clicked twice before it caught. He leaned on the counter, reading the deed again. Fingertip tracing Ward Estate, 1912. The legal description matched the mailbox. A note tucked behind the page carried another header. Beaumont Legacy Office, Harbor Street. He exhaled. He remembered a funeral, his godfather's cologne, and a handshake held a heartbeat longer than polite. "Patient," the man had said. "Careful." He put on a coat A. ND drove toward the harbor. The office sat behind a frosted panel with a name. "I'm here to review a trust file," he said. The receptionist asked for identification and a key phrase. He gave both. In back, a vault door side. A manager in a navy suit offered a hand. They entered a room that smelled like paper and steel. The manager placed a folder on the table and nudged it forward. Ethan breathed in, then opened it. The first page carried a date from 8 years ago, the title Beaumont Legacy Trust, and language placing assets outside personal and marital claims. Beneath it sat statements that did not shout, but added line by line to a number that tightened his chest. 100 million invested with the indifference of time. His thumb tapped the table, a quiet metronome. He checked disbursement rules, successor clauses, and a note in his godfather's tight hand. Silence builds the strongest rooms. He closed his eyes and let the cool air settle his face. Outside, wind cut sharp. A woman in a yellow coat fought a stroller. A stranger held the door without asking. Small kindness, he logged it. Back at the house, he cleared a corner of the living room and set a folding table there. The laptop woke. He created a new email, a new phone line, and a shell company with a simple name. He rolled his sleeves and began mapping a slow return. He started with failing suppliers nobody watched, then small logistics firms, where cash flow mattered more than noise. He read covenants until his eyes watered, measured burn against weather, called 2 turnaround lawyers who answered on Saturdays. One asked if he was sure about the grind. He said yes. At night he kept the lights low. He ate standing up. He walked the hallway to keep his legs from locking. When the radiator hissed, he pictured Vivian pouring champagne and talking about futures she barely understood. Pity flickered, then went out. In town, gossip shifted. A barista told a customer he had vanished. Another swore he saw him buying paint and a cheap lamp. Someone else said he looked thinner. The rumor felt useful. He filed the folder in a locked tin under the bed before sleep. He practiced 3 words into the dark. Not yet ready, he slept light. Then rain came with a pulse that morning, soft but steady. Ethan sat at a small desk, tapping a pencil against the edge of a notebook. The laptop hummed, graphs blinked. He leaned back, ran a hand through his hair, and listened to the roof complain. The rhythm steadied him. Weeks had turned into months of quiet movement. Each sunrise began with coffee, cold air, and a notebook of numbers. He bought out broken warehouses through silent subsidiaries, picked up undervalued freight routes, invested in recycling tech no one cared about yet. Every deal was signed beneath a different name. He learned to speak less, to let silence negotiate. Vivian filled magazines instead, photos, galas, perfume launches. Her smile looked fixed, like a brand logo more than a woman. She bragged about a new expansion in Singapore, an expansion built on loans she never read the fine print for. At night, Ethan watched her interviews without sound. He noticed her eyes dart when reporters asked about profit. She blinked too much, exhaled too fast. Pressure leaves traces. By March, the market shifted. The freight company he'd quietly funded doubled in value. The warehouse leases he'd signed through show firms became hotspots for new distribution chains. He closed his notebook, breathed out slow, and finally turned on the light in the hall. He walked the house room by room. The air smelled cleaner now, fresh paint of faint lemon polish. He opened the hatch to the crawl space again, just to feel the hinge give easily. Under his palm, the old wood felt alive, as if the structure knew what he was building. A week later, Vivian's company missed payroll. She blamed the banks, then the accountants, then a phantom hacker. But the truth spread fast. Vendors stopped calling her Miss Carter, and St. started saying former owner. Gossip traveled quicker than freight. At the downtown cafe, 2 assistants whispered over lattes. She's losing everything, they said. Heard she's selling her jewelry. Someone laughed. Karma with high heels. Ethan's phone buzzed that night. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Silence, then a shaky voice. You're watching this, aren't you? Vivian said. They've turned on me. He could hear her breathing hard, maybe pacing. Vivian, he said quietly. You turned on yourself. He ended the call before she could reply. He sat back, let the rain hit the window harder, and stared at the reflection of the small house behind him. The place no one wanted had become his headquarters. At midnight, he drafted a press statement. Just a few lines. Ward Capital Holdings dedicated to rebuilding what others waste. He read it twice, smiled faintly, and pressed save. The launch was near, but not yet. He closed the laptop, stretched, and whispered to the dark. Let her thin. 'Cause storm just started. The storm didn't stop. It changed rhythm. Spring sunlight returned sharp and clear, and with it came whispers that a quiet new fund was swallowing failed companies whole. Ward Capital Holdings. No one knew the face behind it. Investors called a ghost with perfect timing. Ethan stepped off the curb outside the bank, hands in his pockets, feeling the hum of city life return under his shoes. He had learned to move unseen. The same reporters who once chased him now spoke his name in conference rooms, not realizing he was listening through intermediaries. He met with partners in neutral cafes, all playing tables and low music. They thought he was just a consultant. He never corrected them. Contracts slid across laminated wood. Pens clicked, hands shook. Each signature brought him closer to the final piece, the shell company that owned every remnant of Vivian's empire. By early summer, she was drowning. Her penthouse lease terminated, her credit collapsed, tabloids and the photo. Vivian stepping out of a cab, sunglasses hiding everything except the tremor in her jaw. Beneath it a headline, "The Carter Collapse, How Luxury Became Liability." That night Ethan watched the story on mute again. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes steady. On screen she looked smaller than memory, shrinking into her own shadow. He didn't smile. He just exhaled through his nose, a slow, quiet release. The auction came 3 weeks later. He arrived early, dressed simply, sleeves rolled, face calm. The air smelled of old carpet and burnt coffee. Bidders whispered numbers like secrets. When Carter Holdings assets appeared on the list, he lifted his card once casually. No competition, no hesitation. Sold. News broke before sunset. Anonymous buyer acquires Carter Holdings. Online forums speculated it was a foreign conglomerate, some guessed old rivals. Only one reporter noticed a signature. E. Ward, Managing Director, Ward Capital Holdings. By morning his inbox overflowed. Requests for interviews, partnership offers. Bankers who once ignored his calls now wanted dinner. He accepted one just to watch their expressions when they realized who he was. Cameras flashed as he stepped onto a press stage. The lights were hot, smelling faintly of dust and metal. He adjusted the microphone, looked at the sea of faces, and spoke in that same measured tone. Ward Capital Holdings was built on patience. Sometimes losing everything clears the noise. Phones lifted, shutters clicked. He walked off without waiting for applause. Across town, Vivian watched from a narrow apartment window. Her reflection overlapped with the TV's glow, his face on every channel. She covered her mouth, knuckles white, whispering something no one would hear. The man she dismissed as finished had rewritten the ending. Outside her building, a delivery truck rolled by with a banner. Ward Capital, rebuilding the future. The logo flashed against the glass like a reminder. She sank into the couch, heartbeat at loud in her ears, realizing too late that every door she slammed had led him here. Evening folded into gold light as Ethan drove the long road back to Brookville. The small house set ahead, its windows glowing warm against the dusk. Gravel crunched under his tires. He parked, switched off the engine, and listened. The hum of crickets, the faint wind brushing the grass, the steady beat of quiet victory. He stepped out, loosened his tie, and walked to the porch. The wood creaked under his shoes, but it no longer felt weak. It felt alive inside. The air carried the scent of varnish and cedar. The house he once entered broken now breathed like it had a heartbeat of its own. He poured a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and smiled faintly. The kitchen clock ticked steady. That sound, steady patient had followed him through months of silence, through rebuilding, through nights when only the rain kept him company. On the table sat a single newspaper, folded open to his photograph. The quietest comeback in city history. Below it, Vivian's former company listed as one of Ward Capital's acquisitions. He stared at the headline, then closed it gently. He walked outside and stood beneath the soft hum of streetlights. The neighborhood smelled of cut grass and smoke from a distant grill. Somewhere kids laughed. The world kept moving oblivious, mercifully ordinary. He thought of Vivian, not with hate but with clarity. She had taken everything that glittered and lost everything that mattered. He had learned to trade noise for peace, vanity for vision. He reached into his pocket, found the original courthouse key, cold metal smoothed by time. For a moment he turned it in his fingers, then placed it on the porch railing, a symbol left behind. In the quiet he said it once more, the words that carried him through every storm. She took everything I had on paper. I took back everything that mattered in reality. The night breathed around him. Soft wind, distant traffic, the faint creak of old wood. Proof that some ruins aren't endings, they're foundations. He stepped back inside, the door closing with a low click, leaving only light behind the curtains. Sometimes the ones laughed at in silence are the ones building empires no one sees coming. Ethan didn't just get even. He proved that patience and quiet strategy will always outlast arrogance and greed. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever been underestimated, and remind them real power doesn't make noise, it waits.